Hey guys, it's VaulSC here. I hope that you're having a good week. I'm sorry that this particular video isn't a content video per se. It is not me teaching you something or doing anything informative here. I am simply advertising and asking if there's anybody within the community that would be willing to help me learn how to use Blender better and possibly Unity, possibly SketchUp. The reason I'm asking this is that I've had a bit of a go at using Blender and other 3D programs, and I would like to I'd like to upskill myself. I'd like to get better at making terrain for TTS, for Infinity games, and I'm not really quite there yet. So if there's anybody out there who watches me on YouTube or plays Infinity, or somebody who just really knows a lot about 3D modeling, who is willing to give up a little bit of time to join me on a voice call and answer some of my questions, that'd be much appreciated. The benefit obviously would be, firstly, that I've got time on my hands to make 3D shapes and textures and things for TTS and Infinity terrain. Secondly, I've got the understanding of how the Infinity of the game is played, so I can actually make pretty decent terrain, and I can sort of take what I've learned and help the community with it. In a similar way that when we had our guy come through and explain to us and show us how to make the 3D versions of the TTS models using photogrammetry, I took that, learned how to do it, and now we've got a whole community of people benefiting from that for our actual gaming. So yeah, just click on the link in Discord and join my Discord server and hit me up with a DM if you think that you are skilled enough with making 3D shapes and 3D objects and textures and importing them to TTS. And secondly, if you've got the time and want to actually help me out, that'll be much appreciated. Maybe we can work together. So everybody who plays Infinity on TTS will have seen these buildings. These are the ones that were first added to the Infinity base mod, and they were created by a guy that I am in touch with. I asked him if he would be willing to help. The problem is just with time zones and availability, and we haven't really got anything happening with that, which is why I thought I'd ask other people. The idea here is that this is not really an asset bundle. It's a 3D object which has been obviously uploaded to Steam, and the textures are attached to it, and obviously there are a couple of different models, and he's just basically attached them and made them into states. So when you right click on this and you go to custom, you can see there's a mesh model which would have been created in SketchUp and then imported into Blender to add the textures. Then of course we have the image, which is uploaded as well, which is the texture which is created specifically for this model. And then of course the collider, which is the same model, so that models can actually that the miniatures can actually be using the physics of it correctly. So for me, when I use Blender, I mean, I know how to do really basic stuff in Blender. I can obviously play around with the miniatures that we import through photogrammetry and add bases to them. But when it comes to this, I mean, really, I know how to sort of cut objects up and sort of extrude bits and pieces and play around with them a little bit. But the problem is I just don't know how to do this very efficiently. When I'm making shapes and things, I don't really know the quickest and easiest ways to actually build the object that I have in my imagination, in my head. And if I had somebody who was able to answer questions and give me tips about what tools to use, that process would be a lot quicker, and I could get to the point where I'm actually making really good terrain. One thing about people who do 3D modeling versus people who play a lot of Infinity is that although these buildings are very practical, it takes a really experienced Infinity player to make terrain that's going to be really, really good for a variety of games and really, really competitive situations. I think a lot of us are sort of getting tired of having to ask opponents whether you could shoot underneath these little railings, for example. Also with the buildings, they're a bit Swiss cheese. You're always asking whether you can shoot from one side to another. And what I'd like to be able to do is create terrain architecture which is really interesting to look at and really interesting to play, but really fair and balanced and really intuitive. And if I had somebody teach me what to do, I'm hopeful that I could make this stuff myself. The more difficult part of it is actually the textures. I know, obviously, how to use the internet. I can use Google and I can find the textures, but making sure that they are mapped to the object correctly is a whole different task, and that's something where I'm really a beginner about. But if I had somebody experienced who knows a lot about 3D modeling to talk me through the whole sort of imaging side of it, where you've got, all the tools are available to me in Blender, obviously, but even though I've watched some tutorials, for example, Andrew Price's stuff about making a donut, I'm able to follow that through. Applying it to Infinity terrain is a bit harder. Similarly, with this green terrain over here, this is made by a different guy. I have asked him if he would help give me some tutorials and stuff, but again, real life and time zones get in the way. Haven't been able to get much help from him. If you look at these terrain pieces, they are very, very good. Again, they've got these little Swiss cheese style gratings where you're not really sure whether you're meant to shoot through them or not. Also, they can be a little bit awkward for moving around in and deploying in. My goal would be to create a set of terrain which can be used by everybody, and it would accommodate a lot of different unit silhouette shapes and types, and be good for a variety of different missions, and be very customizable, and would give you options for mixing and matching the colors and the textures a little bit better. So I've got ideas in my imagination about how I would want everything to look and what I would actually do. I just don't have the skills to get from that point of imagination to the actual reality of having a model in TTS. The other thing is SketchUp, which is a different program from Blender. I have tried out the free trial version of it. If I had somebody who's experienced with SketchUp, I could work out whether or not I need to pay money for the pro version or whether I'd get away with using the free version. And secondarily, making the shapes and importing them into Blender and getting the textures mapped for them is a task. So that's just a summary of what I'm looking for, guys. If that's you and you're watching this video and you would like to help me because you are a person that likes to feel needed and helpful, and generally you are altruistic, that would be lovely if you could help me. Also, if you have the skills and you have been wanting to use better terrain in TTS, well, I may be able to sort of learn from you and then put in the actual hard work, building the things and going from there. So again, hit the link in the video description or copy paste it to join my Discord server if you're not in there already. Then hit me up with a DM. Again, looking for people who are experienced with 3D modeling, have some time on their hands, and are willing to sort of meet up with me at a time of the day that suits both of our time zones to actually do some work. I can then share my screen, we can go on voice, and I can ask some questions, and we can try and build some terrain together. That'd be really cool.